Okay. So I want to thank Jessica for asking me to be up here. I want to thank Wino for staying alive long enough to hear my story. And I want to thank all y'all for being here tonight. I know, just being honest, sometimes on Sunday nights I really don't feel like coming up here, and I want to thank y'all for actually coming out and showing up. So thank y'all. So let's see. Thank you, Bobby, for your side comments. You're a very unique gentleman. I'm glad you're here. So, Wino always tells us guys that never bring notes up here. Just speak from the heart. Share the story that you're meant to share today. That day. But he has allowed me to read something to y'all that I like to read every single time I do my story. And he says it's because it's part of my story. So I'm going to read something real quick. It's something I wrote in 2013, 5 years before I got sober. I was actually sober when I wrote this. Well, no. I was not drinking whenever I wrote this. I was not actually living a sober life, but I was not drinking at the time. And so I had a moment of clarity, and so I wrote this about what was going on in my life. So it's dark in my room, not because it's nighttime. It's actually in the middle of the day. It's dark because the windows are all covered with blankets to keep the hellish sun out. I hate the sunlight. I hate the heat. I keep it freezing in my apartment like a morgue because that's what it is. I am the living dead. I am covered head to toe in a blanket, like a burial shroud. My arms crossed upon my chest because it hurts to move. But I am moving, not by my own will, but I'm shaking uncontrollably. I can't stop. I try to close my eyes, but they won't stay closed. It hurts to close them. I want to sleep. I'm so tired, but I'm afraid if I fall asleep, I won't be able to wake up. I can feel my body shutting down. It hurts to breathe, and I can't stop coughing. I go to the restroom occasionally, not really to use the toilet. I don't remember the last time I ate, so I haven't had a bowel movement in a while. I'm dehydrated, so I can't urinate. I go to the restroom to dry heave and stare at myself in the mirror. I glance at my pale, sallow face and the dark rings under my sunken eyes. I stare into the atmospheric blue void of my eyes for a long time. I see so much love, but I feel nothing but sadness and pain. I don't know who or what I've become. They say dogs can smell death. If I had a dog, he'd be huddled, whimpering in the corner, afraid of me, because I know I reek of death. I haven't showered in days. Standing that long hurts, and I can't bathe because I'm afraid that I will drown. I can't take a bath because I'm afraid I will drown. I think of these things as I'm still staring into the blue void that is my eyes. I try to walk back to my couch. I tremor and shake with every step. I'm out of alcohol, and I need more. I don't want more, I need it. Like a diabetic needs insulin, or an asthmatic needs an inhaler. I need it to survive the day. I need it so I can pass out. I need it so the demons will leave me alone and the bugs will stop crawling on my skin. I need it so the voices will leave my head. I need it because it's killing me. And the only way to live one more day is to succumb to this slow death. I need it because I'm an alcoholic and I'm already dead. So I wrote that. Thank you. So I wrote that in 2013. At the time, I thought that was my bottom, but that's something that I've learned.
It sounds like you've been through something significant.
I did. Thank you. That was awesome. So one thing that's interesting about our lives is that if we don't stop, or if I don't stop drinking or using, it will always get worse. And so that was in 2013, and let's see, when was it? A year after that, I was living in a apartment in Galveston, and well, I was squatting in an apartment in Galveston. I was no longer paying the bills. The electricity was shut off. The roommate who I had, who had been paying all the rent and everything, had already left, taken all the furniture. I was just there with whatever I had, and whatever alcohol I could steal. And so around that time, things were just getting worse and worse. And I ended up I didn't have a job. I didn't have any money. And so I'd walk to the nearest Kroger's on the seawall and go steal, I was drinking sake back then because they had higher alcohol content than regular wine. But I was stealing sake from Kroger's, and I go to the dollar store and I get a package of lunch meat and a loaf of bread and just stick it in my pants and walk out. And I started having hallucinations, and I started thinking that the security guard from the dollar store had caught me, but instead of like stopping me, he was following me down the seawall. And so when I finally got back to the apartment, I hid the bread and lunch meat in the cabinet, and I ended up hiding the bottle of sake inside a air conditioned grate or whatever. I unscrewed an air conditioned grate, so whenever they came to bust the door down, I wouldn't have any. They couldn't find it, and so I spent about the next 3 hours hallucinating that this security guard was trying to kill me. I could see him outside my door, and then what ended up happening was I was imagining the security guard standing outside the door, and he was talking to me. He was telling me that I'm a liar, I'm a thief, I'm an alcoholic, and I should die. And then he would walk away. And then I started imagining two friends that were outside my window. And they were telling me that I'm going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. I'm not going to die. Everything's going to be fine. But the security guard kept coming back, kept telling me I was going to die. He told me if I moved. So I was sitting in a chair, and if I moved, then he was going to come in and shoot me. And so I was just sitting there for hours. Finally, I figured out, okay, maybe if I piss myself, he'll leave. He'll just leave me alone. Maybe he'll feel bad for me if I piss myself. And so that's what I did. I peed myself. And then a little bit later, I thought, okay, well, that didn't work. Maybe if I shit myself, And so I did. I shit myself. And I don't know if this was me telling myself, okay, this is what I need to do. Or I don't know if this was my body shutting down. And I was just giving it the excuse. So after I shit myself, he was still there. And at some point, I realized I'm going to die. Now, I believed all this is real. I believed there was a guy outside. I believed there was two friends outside. But at some point, I realized, okay, I'm done. And I laid down on the floor, and I could feel my body shutting down. I could feel my breathing kind of going like shallow, and I could feel my heartbeat just kind of like just going so fast, like I was fixing to have a heart attack. And at that moment, I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to go. And I don't know what happened, but I'm laying there in my own piss, shit, and I've been vomiting like bile or whatever. I hadn't eaten and haven't drank anything, and just laying there in my own mess, thinking I'm going to die, and being okay with it. Being okay with, if this is it, this is it. I lived longer than I expected. Maybe my family and my friends will be better if I'm dead. And so I laid there and just accepted this is what's going to happen. And I don't know what happened, but I felt, as I laid there, willing to die, something happened. Well, my first spiritual experience that I can remember. I heard a voice, and it wasn't a security guard. which I now feel like was a demon. And it wasn't the two friends that were trying to keep me alive that I feel now were angels. It was a voice in my head saying, "You're going to be okay. Just keep breathing. You're going to be okay." After I heard that voice, everything kind of stopped. My heart slowed down enough to where I felt like I wasn't going to die anymore. My breathing got normal. And I felt like I was going to be okay. I wasn't shaking as much. So I got up off the floor, realized that the person who was trying to kill me wasn't there anymore. I still believed it was real, but he wasn't. He was no longer outside my door. And I called my mom. So I'm in Galveston. My mom lives in Bryan, Texas. So I called her, and I told her that there was a police officer outside my door trying to kill me. And she knows me well enough to know something was going on. And so she called Galveston EMS, and they came to the apartment. I let them in, and I tried to explain to them that there was a police officer outside trying to kill me, and they kind of placated me. They were like, "Oh yeah, we know that guy. He's done this before." They were just trying to they were just trying to get me to the hospital, And so I ended up going to the hospital, UTMB. Was there for 3 days. My mom came and got me, and that was the start of my first real attempt of sobriety. I've been to rehab many, many times. I've been to lots of, now they call them sober living houses. Back then we called them halfway houses. Been to lots of houses. And this time we realized, okay, I've got to do something different. And so we decided the best way to keep me sober, or the best way to start this, is I needed long-term treatment. So everybody knows about Synacor here in Waco, and it's the 30, 60, 90-day treatment center. Well, back then, they had Synacor in Fort Worth, Synacor in Deer Park, Texas, and Synacor in Baton Rouge, and those were 2-year programs. 18 months of behavior modification treatment and 6 months of working while living in the rehab. So I did that. I completed the whole 2 years. Decided I have nothing else going in my life. I don't have any career opportunities or nothing. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to become a drug and alcohol counselor. So I completed 2 years at Synacor, transferred to the Fort Worth facility, started school to become a drug and alcohol counselor. And I was working at that facility, and I loved it. I mean, I was doing what I thought was a worthy, honorable job, and it is. Later, I didn't realize that it was not something I can actually do and stay sober doing. I worked for Synacor for a good 6 months, decided, okay, I'm going to keep doing this. I went to work for a short-term treatment program, private facility. Did that for about a year. Now, I never went to AA. I mean, I've been to AA and I've been to church, but I never actually worked a program, never lived a program, never worked steps, I would be in the back of the room and on my phone. Back then we didn't have internet on our phones, and so I'd just be texting people or whatever and not paying attention at all what was going on. And that's probably one reason why I just kept relapsing, So I see people in these meetings, I look at them like, oh, okay, you'll get it one day. Yeah, so I used to go to AA and not really pay attention. But anyway, I was working for these rehabs and not doing anything for myself to stay sober. And so what was keeping me sober was working for this rehab. And whenever that rehab shut down for financial issues, I ended up losing my job and ended up drinking again. And back then, I was mainly an alcoholic. I would do drugs here and there, but drinking was always my thing. You give me 1 pint or an 8-ball of any drug, I would pick the pint. Now, years later, I got into meth and started shooting meth, and that changed everything. But so I lost the rehab job, started drinking again. That was in 2014. 2015, had the opportunity to move back to Houston. Ended up meeting a girl that lived in a hotel, and she shot meth. And so I like to say, I say this jokingly, but I started shooting meth, and meth cured my alcoholism. So I shot meth for the first time September 2015, and from then until I got completely sober, May 25th, 2018, I've drank alcohol probably 4 times and I haven't been drunk. Meth was all I cared about. Doing that high and what that did, that took over every single aspect of my life and took over every single thought. Everything revolved around that. So I was staying with this girl in this hotel. She wasn't paying for the hotel room. I wasn't paying for the hotel room. She had a sugar daddy in California, and we paid for the room by me filming her for him, doing things. And that's how we paid for the room. And that was my first kind of foray into the drug world. Being an alcoholic, I could always go into a store, a grocery store or a liquor store, and just kind of put a pipe in my pocket and put a bottle in my pocket. Going into the drug world brought a whole nother aspect of criminal activity and just debauchery and just abuse, really. Physical, mental, spiritual, everything. So I stayed in that world for a couple of years. Or no, not a god dang. It wasn't even a couple of years. Yeah, it was 3 years. And in 3 years, I went further and deeper than I ever did in 20 years of drinking. Started going to jail, shoplifting. I used to love shoplifting. I was good at it for a while. Then you get me high, and I start doing that, and I get stupid. That drug really starts to become more important. You're like, okay, I got to get this stuff so I can get this drug. And started doing county time, and then did state jail time for a bit, and now if I get caught shoplifting, if I get caught shoplifting a 99-cent candy bar, I'm facing 2 years state jail. I know, it's funny, right? And so I'm in Harris County Jail in 2017, and I realized I got to start doing something different. Or it's just going to get worse and worse. And so I'm in Harris County Jail. I finally admit that I'm a veteran. I joined the Navy in 2002, got honorably discharged, thank God, in 2003 for alcohol treatment failure. They sent me to my very first rehab. And it was 2003. I wasn't ready to quit. And so, but I never considered myself a veteran because I never got out of training. I never went anywhere. I never fought. I never did anything. I just stayed drunk the whole time. I don't remember a single thing other than drinking and running from people. I used to like to hide outside in the woods and just drink. But finally, in 2017, I admitted I was a veteran, and that opened up the doors for me to get some help through the VA. I was in Harris County, and they realized that I could probably get qualified for treatment in Temple at the domiciliary, which is a mental health and alcohol drug treatment center. So that's how I got to Central Texas. I went to the VA there, stayed there for a couple months, thought I was doing good, got out, went to like a VA halfway house right across the street, and immediately started shooting meth again. Got caught, one thing about that is you start smelling. I don't know if y'all know it, but you could smell it. It stinks. So the room I was sleeping in, you could walk in and it smelled it. Kind of like alcohol. Like, if you hide a bunch of bottles on your bed, well, eventually it's going to start stinking. But yeah, I got kicked out of that. Ended up going to Killeen, staying in a halfway house there, and met some people at the shelter in Killeen, and decided that we were all going to room together. And they were going to pay for it, and it didn't really, that never works out. So it was a guy and his girlfriend, and they ended up, they fought all the time, like just drag out fighting. And so I would just hide in my room and do meth, and they would just fight. And one day they were like, okay, well, we got to go to Kentucky because we got to go deal with some legal issues. But we're just going to, make a road trip to Kentucky, and then, we'll come right back. And you want to go with us? And I'm like, no, I don't want to go with y'all. That's a bad idea. They left. So they left Killeen. They made it to Temple. They called me from Temple and said, hey, we got an 8-ball of meth. Now you want to come with us? I said, yeah, of course. And so I was the driver. I drove 13 hours. They had a hose connected to the pipe, and it was just, that's how I got to Kentucky. My way back was completely different. So we got to Kentucky, and the guy ended up hitting her, and I am not cool with that at all. And so I said something to him. I told him like how much I didn't like that, and so I passed out. I was asleep for 3 days. When I woke up, they were gone. They left me in Kentucky. I know. And so one thing about Texas, and one thing I always loved about Texas, was that it's big. I'm very resourceful. I can go from halfway house to rehab to friend's couch and just do that tour of Texas. And so, but when I'm in Kentucky, I'm up in the hills, like the hills have eyes, like area of Kentucky. Like there is nothing. It's so rural that a lot of people don't have vehicles. They drive 4-wheelers everywhere. And so I'm up there. I got left at a drug house, thank God. And I'm a very nice, likable person. Everybody knows I do not belong in the drug world. I'm just too naive. I'm too nice for the drug world. But the house I was staying in, I was doing their dishes, taking out the trash. Sad to say, I was watching the kids. I was being the bitch of the house, and that's how I got my drugs, and did that for 3 months. I made it last for 3 months, and finally, it got to the point where I had moved from house to house. People got tired of me, and they were like, okay, you got to go. And so I would find another place to go. My family is begging me to come back to Texas, like begging me. And I keep telling my family I'm not ready. Like I'm not coming back to Texas and doing exactly what I'm doing in Texas, but here, And one day, I kind of came to, and the meth was gone. The girl I was with was shooting Suboxone, and I tried that once and didn't like it. There's no air conditioning in the trailer we're in. She's got kids that are crying in a room. She's shooting up in the bathroom. And I kind of look around, I come to, and I realize my environment. I realize what I'm doing and where I'm at. And I know it's time. And I'd had the opportunity to keep going. There was a drug dealer that told me, hey, you could deal for me. I'll let you stay in this trailer and you can have all whatever you want. You can do that, or you can just do what you're doing now. And my dumb ass actually thought about it. I'm not a drug dealer. I would have got killed and left in the woods, and no one would know where I was at. So I came to and realized, okay, it's time. I like to think, or I like to say that I looked up at God and said, all right, it's just you and me. I don't know what else to do. Like, I don't know how to get out of this. And I don't think I actually physically did it. I think God heard my cries on the inside and kind of, started leading me the way. So I finally got out of that trailer, ended up making it to West Virginia, which was 2 hours away, and ended up staying in West Virginia for 3 weeks, going to AA meetings, listening probably for the first time, going to Bible study, and that's when I kind of realized, and didn't really think about it, but that's when I realized I haven't had a thought to drink or use since I left Kentucky. It's like that whole idea, it's like I was done. Like, I still haven't had the thought or idea to drink or use. Wino says, when you're done, you're done. When you're ready, you're ready. And so I was done. So I made it to West Virginia, stayed there for 3 weeks. State of West Virginia paid for a bus ticket back to Texas, went back to the VA, stayed there for 2 months, which will be my last rehab ever. If for some chance, by God, I hope it doesn't happen, I ever start drinking or using again, I will never go back to rehab. For the fact that I don't need it. I know this room right here works. I have no reason to go back to a rehab again if I know this program works. So, but I went to rehab for the very last time at the VA. Now I can tell y'all I've been to 8 or 9 rehabs treatment programs all over Texas, and that VA program is the best one I've ever seen in my life. That place is amazing. What they do for the veterans there is life-changing. But whenever I completed that program, I realized I'm done with rehab, but I'm still homeless. Now, at the time, Temple and Bell County, I don't know if this has changed, but Temple and Bell County didn't have any sober living houses. They didn't even have a Salvation Army at the time. They had one shelter, and it might have shut down. So my case manager said, hey, have you ever thought about coming to Waco? I had never in my life thought about coming to Waco. I didn't even realize Waco was 30 minutes from Temple. It just seemed like, it just didn't occur to me this town even existed. But I said yes, okay, let's go to Waco. So I called a bus to the VA transport from Temple to Waco, went straight to the Salvation Army, stayed there for 3 months. And while I was there, I got into a program where if you're actively looking for a job and you're staying sober, they will find you a place and pay your rent and your bills for 3 months. And so that's what I did. I stayed there for a couple months, got into the program. They found me a little tiny house, shack, really, in East Waco. But it was mine. Like, it was my first, actual house that I was living in alone, I still wasn't paying rent. The Salvation Army was taking care of rent. I've always been really good at getting people to take care of me, which makes it really good here because now I get Wino and LeMay to take care of me. And then I get to take care of them too, which is kind of a good trade-off. But so I'm in this house, and I realize, okay, and I haven't started going to AA yet. So I realized, okay, I'm starting to fall back into some behaviors, start picking up shoplifting again. I'm sober. But I'm going to the mall, going and stealing like a Metallica shirt, going to the dollar store and getting batteries and just, whatever. I mean, just trinkets, for no reason other than just the high. I'm sober, but I'm still living a addictive lifestyle, really. And so the nearest, I realized I need to start going to AA. So the nearest AA meeting from the Salvation Army in East Waco is on 12th in Austin, 1301 Austin Avenue. Used to be called Austin Avenue Methodist Church, on the 3rd floor of that church. Now it's First Methodist Waco downtown campus. But when I started going to AA there, it was Austin Avenue. And I met somebody there who kind of took me under her wing for the moment. She knew I was out of place. She knew I needed help. She knew that place couldn't really give me the help I needed. Their meetings are at noon. And a lot of people go to that meeting and then leave to go to work and stuff. So there's really not much fellowship. It's a good meeting. I enjoy it, but it's not much fellowship. So the lady that was there knew I needed more than what that place had to give me. So on Thanksgiving Day, 2018, she invited me to a Thanksgiving meal here at the Triangle. And I've been here once for a chili cook-off and didn't really think much about it. So I came here Thanksgiving Day, and I'm sitting in a chair kind of on the second row, facing that way. And there's an old man sitting right here, and there's somebody cheering. I can't remember her name, but she calls on some guy named Wino and asks if he'd like to share. And I look over and I'm like, man, that's just really rude, calling that dude Wino. And he's all scruffy looking, and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, he's Wino. But I hear him talk, and when I don't remember what he said, what he shared, how he, I know how he said it. But I don't remember his words. But I remember the feeling I got when hearing him talk was like, oh my God, that is who I need. Which is odd to me because at the time, I despised authority. I didn't want people telling me what to do. My dad was my assistant principal in high school. My dad and I didn't talk for 10 years. We're finally kind of getting our relationship going right now, like through phone, and he'll visit once a year. But I heard Wino talk, and I'm like, that guy right there, that's who I need. But Wino is very intimidating, and so there was no way I was ever going to go up to that man and tell him, like, hey, can you be my sponsor or whatever, and introduce myself. But as fate would have it, after the meeting, I'm kind of standing around, apparently looking out of place, because Wino comes up to me and says, "Hey, boy, you need to help these guys set up for these tables and chairs for this meal we're fixing to have." And my first thought was, "Yes, sir." I just said yes, sir, and did it. No thought of saying no. No thought of anything other than yes, sir, and just doing what he told me to do. And so I, helped set up for the Thanksgiving meal. Looked around, couldn't find him. Went outside. I found him outside, and I just went and stood next to him. And I don't remember if I said this or thought this, but what's next? And ever since then, that's kind of been my thing. What's next? Going up to him and what's next? And what was next is the next day, him and LeMay were moving from Riesel to Waco, and so I helped them move for about a week, just moving stuff in and out, moving stuff from one place to the other. being around them and being around Wino and actually seeing how AA works. And for a long time, I never thought about it. For most of my recovery, really hasn't been much thought. Or there's been a few times where I've questioned Wino's authority. And one time in particular, very early on, we're moving stuff around in this garage, and Wino's very particular about things. And so it's hot, I'm tired, and I pick up something it's like a chair, and it looks broken, it just looks worthless. And he tells me to put it somewhere, and I got tired, and I just threw it across the garage. And and he talks about being a pro boxer back in the day, and one thing he still always says is he's before he dies, he wants to knock out one more motherfucker, And thankfully, I haven't been that one motherfucker yet, But that day, I came close. He grabbed me up by my neck, and I like to imagine he lifted me up. And told me, and got, he gets nose in the nose with that cigar, like he gets up there, and told me, like, the garage door was open, and he told me, you're going to do what I tell you to do, or you can hit the road. And for a split second, I looked out at that road and thought about it, split second, thought about it, looked out on the road, and I'm like, no, sir, I'm good, And pretty much from that point on, we saw eye to eye. I mean, we're also the same height, too, so that helps. But there's been a couple other times where we've had to have some serious conversations where he told some of his other sponsees he was coming over to my place to have a serious conversation, and told some of his other sponsees, like, hey, I'm going to have a conversation with one of my sponsees, and I don't know how it's going to work out. I might knock him out, or I might lose the sponsee. And he came over, and we had a heart-to-heart, man-to-man conversation. I still didn't get knocked out, and we're still sponsee sponsored. And from that point on, that was probably July 5th, 2019. We haven't really had to have very many hard talks. So some things that working with Wino has taught me a lot about patience with this whole program. I didn't come here to work steps. I read the steps every day I come in here. I never really thought much about them. I didn't really come here to work steps. I didn't come here to get sober. I didn't come here to get friends. I didn't come here to find a family. I got all that. I think I just came in here, and I came to AA because there was nothing left to do. I didn't know what else to do. I came here out of just sheer desperation of like, what? I know it works. I've been hanging around AA for a long time. I know it works. Why am I not doing it? And the answer probably is, well, the answer was, like, I had a lot of pride. I just didn't want to do it, So when I got here this time, I didn't really have any ideas. I didn't have any thoughts on how to do anything. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know shit about shit. I needed someone. I didn't need someone to help me stay sober. I needed someone to teach me how to live life. Teach me how to become a man. Teach me how to be a friend. Teach me how to be a son. I didn't. So a year goes by. When I first moved here, I was walking everywhere. when I first I met a pastor at my church. A week after meeting him, he went and took me to Academy and bought me a bicycle. I rode that bicycle for a while. Met Wino and people in AA, and so I started getting rides to different places. Worked for Ernie Ochoa for his ice company. That was my first real job here in Waco, which is a great place for people new in recovery to work at. And learned a little bit about some hard work. Worked there for a while, and then got the opportunity to work for my church. So I mentioned I had started going to AA in Waco at Austin Avenue. Well, that eventually became First Methodist. And then a year after I moved to Waco, the pastor at First Methodist came to me. I didn't put an application in. I didn't ask him anything. They came to me and said, "Hey, we'd like to offer you a job." And I filled out the paperwork. And, later on, I was like, "Hey, y'all did a background check on me, right?" They were like, "Oh, yeah, we did." They're like, "We know everything," which makes it even cooler. They know my background, and they still, I still got a job at a church. I wasn't even a church-going person, really, until I moved here. Now I've been working at that church for almost 6 years. That's the longest I've ever held a job in my life. So I'm working at the church, getting rides from people. Opportunity comes along where I can buy a used scooter. So I buy a used scooter. That ends up breaking down. I'm getting more rides from people. A men's Bible study at my church ends up buying me a brand new scooter. Drove that for a while. That ended up breaking down. And then I got the opportunity to buy a used vehicle from a brother at AA. I paid half down, and then got put on $100 monthly payments, and then COVID happened. So with my COVID check and my work bonus, I was able to pay off that vehicle in 6 months. It's still the vehicle I drive now, so it's the first vehicle I've ever owned that I have completely owned. Like, it's paid off. Next year, when I start my new career, I will be buying a brand new 2-door Mini Cooper S, and that'll be my next stop, my next upgrade. But I say all that to let you know, there's a process. People would ask Wino, like, "Hey, when's Will getting a car?" Or no, people would ask me, like, "When's Will getting or when are you getting a car?" And I'm like, "I don't know, ask Wino." That's been my reply for everything. When are you doing this? When are you going to school? When are you, I don't know, ask Wino. At 2 years in, I ended up getting the opportunity to start going to school. That was Wino. He realized he's like, "Okay, it's time for you to start thinking about going to school. What do you want to go to school for?" And I didn't really know. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew working with Wino, he is not tech savvy at all. So I was helping him with his computer stuff, his phone stuff, printer, whatever, just helping him do, technical stuff. And he kept calling me his tech guy. And I don't know how much of a tech guy I was, but that's what I was going to school for. And now, 2.5 years later, I graduated this week with my associate's degree in computer networking and systems administration. I have 2 more semesters left, and I'm going to get a advanced certificate in cloud computing. The starting pay. Now, this is my prayers and my hopes. Is to December of this year leave working at the church, and in January of 2026. Yeah, 2026. Wow. Start my new career in cloud computing, working for either Amazon, Microsoft, or Google. Making at least starting off $100,000 a year. Now, I'm 45, so I got to really start thinking about retirement. So that's why I jumped into something like that, so I could start making a lot of money quickly. But I was making, when I first started working for Ernie Ochoa, I was making $9 an hour. I'm not gonna. I make enough now to pay my bills, have a small amount of savings, and get to go to concerts and basically kind of live the life I want to live. Um, let's see. I have a cat that I love and adore. She saved my life, and I saved her life. I live in an apartment complex that is run by Mission Waco. It is a Christian living apartment complex. I'm still blown away that I get to live there. Never considered myself a Christian my whole life. What else? My mom has Alzheimer's, so it's very slow progressing. But I'm very blessed that I get to see her and go up on vacation with her every June. We go to our family reunion. I get to drive her and just kind of watch her and take care of her as much as I can. God, there's probably so much I'm leaving out. The most important thing, well, I can't say the most important thing. One of the important things about this life that I get to live is I get to be a part of something bigger than me. I get to be a part of the Triangle, part of AA itself. I think about this a lot. We live in a world or in a society that talks a lot and says a lot of stuff, and that they claim to be this and that and whatever. But then you watch people and their actions don't really match their words, and it saddens me that it's. But I think, like, what can I do? I can't do anything to change other people. I can't really do anything to determine how someone else lives or behaves. But what I can do is monitor myself and pay attention to how I behave and how I act and how I react to things and how I treat people, and hope to be an example. And so I feel like, I hope, and I pray I am, a good representative of AA, of the Triangle, of my church, of my God, of my sponsor, my friends, our group within the group called The Crew, my parents who used to tell me, like, do the right thing because you never know who's watching, you know. I want to be someone that whenever I do have a kid, and when I tell my kid my story, because my kids are going to know everything, I want my child to look up to me and be like, you know what? Dad did it, so I can do it. So thank you, Wano. Thank you, LeMay, the rest of the crew. Thank you, God, for this life that we get to live, because we never know if today's the last day. If we never know, is this going to be the last meeting I go to? Is this going to be the last time I hug this person? I think about that a lot, because there's somebody in my life whose health is failing, and I don't know if this might be the last time I get to spend the night at his house. You know, I look forward to the days when I get to hug my friends, people that really give a shit. You know, not because they say I love you, but because in here. So thank y'all.